Good evening. Welcome to the Wednesday, November 15th meeting of the Chappaqua Central School District Board of Education meeting. The board has been in executive session since roughly 5:35. Can I have a motion to reopen the public meeting? All in favor?
Aye.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, because we have some of our younger students here tonight, we are going to start with the Grafflin presentation.
Yes, we are. Debbie, would you please like to come up? And Principal of Grafflin, everyone. Larry Oswald, Brian Spillane, Assistant Principal. And so I'd like to welcome you here tonight, and I know we'll be moving to the iLab shortly, but go ahead.
Good evening to the Board of Education, Dr. Ackerman, and the Central Office Administrators. Mr. Spillane and I are delighted to be here tonight to discuss the Elementary Social Studies Curriculum TC. Our presentation will also include an overview of the cartographer cart used in 3rd and 4th grade classrooms and an interactive 3rd grade social studies lesson led by classroom teacher Bianca Cardinale. Our presentation aligns well with the district's second strategic priority, which is rethinking traditional curriculum. These priorities were thoughtfully developed to promote student growth in all academic areas. As educators, we are continually evaluating our programs to ensure that they support and facilitate student growth and development. We are excited to demonstrate how our 3rd grade social studies curriculum contributes to this important strategic goal.
In addition to the strategic priorities, we identified target areas. The social studies curriculum aligns to the area of curriculum fidelity with an appropriately cycled curriculum. This alignment ensures that our curriculum is not only well structured, but also effectively delivered to our students. Forgot I have to do the clicker thing. It's important to note that all Chappaqua Elementary students benefit from a comprehensive social studies program encompassing the same 4 units of study: geography, history, economics, and civics. The sequence of these units may vary depending on the grade level. This slide displays the sequence of the 3rd grade units. Tonight, we will be delving into the geography components of the curriculum, highlighting how geography is integrated across all 4 units and enriches the overall learning experience.
We wanted to share that last year, the 3rd and 4th grade teachers received a grant from Chappaqua School Foundations to acquire 2 Nystrom social study labs at each elementary school. These labs include the cartographer cart, which is equipped with an array of valuable resources, such as student atlases, desk maps, relief maps, and activity globes. What sets these resources apart is their writability, allowing students to actively engage with them using dry erase markers. Additionally, the cart is mobile, making it easy to relocate to the classrooms within the grade level. Essentially, it serves as a traveling geography laboratory, which will significantly enhance student engagement and enable them to apply their geographic knowledge through hands-on activities. We're thrilled to have these innovative resources at our disposal. The materials within the cartographer cart play a crucial role in helping our students build and reinforce their geography skills. The hands-on nature of these resources will undoubtedly deepen their understanding of various geographic concepts, such as latitude, longitude, landforms, regions, and more. Moreover, the ability of the students to physically manipulate and practice locating specific countries and continents, understand the relationship between different places, and develop global competencies is invaluable. These skills serve as a foundation for nurturing global citizens who are not only well-informed, but also curious and deeply engaged with the world that they live in. We trust that these resources will empower our students to become more knowledgeable and globally aware individuals.
Third and fourth grade teachers participated in professional development sessions last summer, during which they revised the scope and sequence of the social studies curriculum. As a result of these revisions, they were able to provide more comprehensive guidance on how to effectively integrate the geography cart resources into our lessons. This proactive approach will undoubtedly benefit our students and ensure that the cartography cart and its resources are maximized for their educational growth.
Now we'd like to provide you with a practical illustration of this integration. Let's delve into examples led by Mrs. Cardinale and our third grade astronaut students. You will need a few props to prepare for this demonstration: an astronaut badge and an astronaut landing lodge.
I didn't know we were going to space tonight.
Okay, should we head to the
Yeah.
lab? Okay.
Yep. So at this time, we're going to head over to the iLab.
Okay.
Sorry, stepped on you. Everybody settled? Let's do it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to NASA. Today, you will be joining our astronauts as guest astronauts for our geography lesson. Astronauts need to know how to find places, especially when they are landing. This astronaut is looking down at Earth, observing its geography. Today, you will be doing the same with your teams. So today we're going to take off in the space shuttle. You are now an astronaut. Do you have your badges? Check. Do you have your landing logs? Check. All right. Here we go. We're going to start lifting off now.
Space Shuttle Flight Controllers giving you a go, no go for launch. Booster, go. Retro. Guys, go. Control. Space Shuttle, you are cleared for liftoff in T-minus 15 seconds. 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Ignition sequence start. 4, 3, 2, 1. NASA, we have liftoff.
All right. Hi, folks. You are now orbiting in space and exploring. Enjoy the solar system, the cosmos. All right. You are now high in space looking down, but oh no, there's a problem.
Come in, Space Shuttle, come in. Can you hear us? This is NASA. We seem to be losing radio contact with you. You're going to be making an emergency landing on your own. We will not be able to guide you. We're losing radio contact. You'll have to find a safe location to land. Space Shuttle, we're losing contact. Good luck.
So go ahead to your consoles. So your three chairs have to do, and you're invited to join and learn how to function. Okay, right. Ready? Yeah.
10 minutes. Make sure you're on your slideshow.
See if there's anything on there.
How are we deciding where to go?
Find places that we think are safe, and then we could navigate to
Okay.
Yeah, we don't just do that. And so, what about
What do you think like the goods? What would be a good type of location?
maybe
Water.
we're thinking land.
I don't think I want to land in an autograph.
That seems cool.
Yeah.
Let's go to like warm where there's a beach.
Always.
Hear that, guys?
What if we, is there certain? Kind of land in the ocean?
Are you guys in agreement about where? Are you deciding together, or how is this working? Yes, okay.
Now, are you two always in the class? All together? Yeah. Take time. Is it big enough? How do you decide? We're in Polk City, Florida. On that, like, it looks like we're kind of on a farm. We're in Polk City, Florida.
You're in Polk City, Florida. Is that a safe place to land? You don't know, you gotta figure that out. Okay. All right. Oh, yeah.
You know, I see a road there.
So you have family that lives.
Yeah. And also that's from me, that's visit.
Very nice. That's cool. Chloe, where do you want to go? Anywhere but here. Look, and the United Kingdom, you know, is also a Tasmania. Uh-huh. And London is the capital city. The Queen, yes, that's right. That's where the Queen. Let's go to Italy. Mhm. So, okay.
Wait, now you're in Africa.
Asia.
We were looking. Is it a smooth, would it be a smooth landing? Not, because I don't want to bumpy, okay, that's where you were looking at, right? Brazil?
We want to make sure we don't land over here, man.
And you're in Brazil? What do you think?
It's the hemisphere. Let's see, can we find it?
Okay.
Go back.
You're right. So neat, you can write right on. All right, so what hemisphere is that? Eastern hemisphere? Okay.
Where are you landing? Like
Okay. Eastern.
We
Yeah,
decided
good.
we're gonna land and try some Indian food.
Oh, I love Indian food.
Curry, a little bit of curry, rice,
Nice.
spices. We're excited about this.
So which hemisphere? I think you were right. Yeah, good job.
Eastern hemisphere, good.
You know how you figure out the hemispheres? So again, it's very close, right?
That one.
Yeah.
On my PR.
All right, that looks good.
All right. Now we're on the screen.
All right, now.
So.
Oh yeah, I want to hear your thinking. I feel like
Why
we're
did
going
I
there 'cause
choose
you like it there.
this? Oh no, I zoomed out.
That it's a little flat. It's got some teeth. We're going back. Oh, wait, wait.
Wow.
Do you think the rainforest with a lot of trees would be okay? Yeah. So it doesn't have to be a complete. Yeah. Or it could be like lower vegetation. The landing strip.
Factoring in food too.
It's safe for landing.
Worry. We're not gonna land. No, desert's good. That's
Yeah, it's a good idea.
whoa.
This is definitely not a desert. That's a desert. That over there. That looks
All right.
not in someone's house.
Now, where are we though?
I don't know.
How do we know where we are?
Right there, right there. That's a good spot.
Now we have a new spot. Africa?
Yeah. Chaperone. One of those. No, that's a city. Because I got you. Because we wanted to let me live in it because I want to.
Okay. That's good reason. Fair enough.
Which part of that? Where? Which country?
Great job.
Yeah, architect. AC. Okay, take your time. It's all good. You do the first page, I'll do the second. All right, what's continent? Did you
You were writing.
No. You came up with like north or south? It is huge. It looks like
All right, astronauts. Here we go. We are going to come back for our landing.
So please come to the rug when you're ready. I'm going to count to 7. And when I say our word of the day from class, we will be here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What did I say was going to come? Thank you. 6, 7, avocado. All right, here we go. Let's do our landing. Is everybody strapped in and safe? Yeah. Here we go, folks. Might be bumpy.
Space Shuttle, this is NASA Control. We had touchdown at the Kennedy Space Center, next to the community of Cape Canaveral, in the state of Florida, in the country of the United States of America, in the continent of North America, in the Western Hemisphere of Earth. Congratulations on a successful emergency landing. NASA Control, out.
All right, astronauts, you had a choice of 7 continents. Can you please tell us what the 7 continents are? 7 continents, please, Luca.
Asia, Africa, South America, Antarctica, Europe, and Australia.
Very good, thank you. You had a choice of 5 oceans to land in. What are the 5 oceans that you had a choice of, Elena? Yes, Arctic, very good. Which is the newest one? Which is the newest one? Joaquin. The southern, very good, thank you. Okay. We can just listen to Space Commander's. All right, folks, I'm gonna read from here in a second. Talking to So, Lost in Space is an immersive experience lesson, and the lesson is part of the beginning of a geography thread that crosses multiple learning areas. Our cross-country research project is a year long. Every month and a half, the kids change seats. Learning begins as an inquiry process using Google Earth. Students explore countries and suggest which country they would like to be named as a group for that month and a half. Students then cultivate cooperative skills, voting on a country, and compromise on which aspect of the country they will research and present later. The choices are geography, climate, language, food, pastimes, and activities. This leads to working on presentation skills. Each country co-teaches the class their slideshow. We just changed seats yesterday, and our new countries are India, the Bahamas, which there was some go-between with Mrs. Cardinale and the kids about whether it's an independent country. They were correct. I was Spain and Guatemala. Then there is a phonics etymology thread as well. So if you take a look at the back of your landing log, there's a short etymology glossary. As we learn geographical terms, we also learn about the evolution of language. So for example, hemisphere, what is the prefix hemi? Wyatt. Half, thank you. And what is sphere? Nico? A ball. A ball. A 3D ball. Thank you. This is a bonus for vocabulary development and an added tool to decoding in upper level grades. This also gives students an overall appreciation for world languages and their roots. Our persuasive writing unit also uses this geography thread. As students learn about geography, they also learn about how we interact with our geographical surroundings, which resources we use, need, and are exploring, and how the Earth is changing because of our choices. During the global issues portion of the unit, students can choose from a variety of issues that they would like to lend their voice to and advocate for. This includes climate change, pollution such as air, noise, and litter, community and global resources, coastline and ocean life changes. This is one of my favorite units because it is one of the first times in their educational lives that students begin to learn that their voice is powerful in an adult world and acquire the tools with which to use it. Finally, and most importantly, the kids really like this experience. Last year, Mrs. Alspa and Mr. Spillane also showcased the type of immersive experience that students participated in, the hydroponics lab. As we play more and more with innovative education, we're so excited, or at least I'm very excited, to keep creating multi-dimensional immersive learning experiences for all of our students.
Mr. Spillane and I would like to take this opportunity to thank our third grade astronauts and Mission Control, Mrs. Cardinale, for their guidance through the evening. We also appreciate the parents for allowing their children to participate tonight. And to the Board of Education members and administrators, we are so glad that we were able to bring you back to really safe.
That's why I said, okay, if everyone just turns around and faces the board, and then maybe they can ask some questions. Is that good? Sure. What an excellent presentation. So, Hillary, did you want to start?
Sure. So I thought this was really cool, and I'm curious, what do you guys think is the most fun part of this activity? Sure, you right there.
Me?
Yes, you.
I think the most fun part is working with your partner and navigating and helping your partner.
Cool.
I think that the most fun part was filling out the living
I think it was fun because you get to interact with a friend and learn more about geography and find places that are fun and safe in the world.
Okay, great. Kelly, do you have a question? What can you do if you and your partner don't agree on where to land? And one person wants to land in the ocean and they have their reasons, and the other person wants to land in the continent. I'm not saying this happened in our group, because my partner, because I didn't know. But I can see how in some cases that this might happen, and what would you do? Why don't we hear from the students we haven't heard from yet? Yeah.
I think it all comes down to a game of rock.
Oh, interesting game. It's part of our training. Part of our training. Okay, very simple. I like it.
Yeah, you
Okay. So when I was a kid, we didn't really have this kind of immersive learning the way that you guys are. And we didn't get to watch cool videos, and we certainly didn't have an iPad to play with and to go and do the 3D Earth and really zoom in on any place in the world that you wanted to see. So how do you think, does that really help you when picking a place? Do you pick a place you've never seen before and zoom in on it? Or do you try to go to a place that you already know? And does having both the globe in front of you and the iPad help you with that decision making?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about why it helps you? Yeah, go ahead.
Because you can't, if you look at a map, you can't see very closely where you land. But if you go on Google Earth, you can just tap places that you can like see where if it's flat or it's not flat.
Because on a globe you can mark it, but on a map it basically every single time you go back on, it resets itself.
And to that very question, I'm going to tell you, what does Mrs. Cardinale tell you about going to the standing in the same place? You go. You never learn when you already know. When you learn, when it's better to learn than just like
when we were in the classroom practicing, I was with my partner and we kept doing the same spot over and over. We were never learning learning new spots of the earth and learning it. It's a big world and it's a beautiful world.
Oh, that was say, yeah.
Not bad. So I was with Chloe and Elena, and to Kaylee's point, we didn't have a diplomatic process. I just said I wanted to go to Italy. Then we ended up in Libya because we couldn't find anywhere safe to land. So did that happen to any of the rest of you, where you wanted to go somewhere and then you sort of had to like divert your path to go somewhere else? Where did you start and where did you end up?
I was thinking to go somewhere in Africa, but then I thought that was not a good safe spot, and it's not a safe spot because people live there and it's not people could.
I got you.
What is you could say farewell to people.
So I went to a year up in Spain in Madrid.
In the pink sweater.
Well,
At first we went to Florida, and then we became Africa, and we kept going back and then we landed in China.
And then Ryan, did you have?
I have a hard one. So put this assignment away and imagine yourself in the summer now, and you might go somewhere with your family. Like, do you think there's anything you could teach your family about what you did here? Like, how might it change the way you think about traveling?
If we were going somewhere that we studied on this thing, I would tell them what we studied about it and where we landed in it and why we chose it.
Anybody else want to share? Well, that was just amazing.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much.
I hope everybody was able to watch that following along from in here. We had a great presentation by our Grafflin kids, which is always the highlight of these meetings, and I probably don't need my astronaut card here anymore. So good evening. We'll move on now to the President's report. I want to update you on a few things. We are holding our second set of board office hours tomorrow. We recognize that the sign-up process was a bit of a mess. We are working on making it better for next month, and then we'll regroup and figure out what we need to change moving forward in the new year. We did not anticipate being so popular and are going to try to make the sign-up process more fair and less dependent on being at your computer at a particular moment. We know there's enough stress with getting our kids into classes. We don't need to pose the same challenge for adults. That said, kidding aside, we are always happy to talk to people outside of office hours if they don't work for you or you couldn't get in. We added these to provide additional opportunities to talk to us, not to make them the only opportunity. And if you are a family that is not feeling seen or heard for whatever reason, please reach out to your building leader or to one of us. Our schools are here for everyone, and we want all of our families to know that we're here to listen, even if office hours don't work for you. Also, I mentioned this at last meeting, but we'll reiterate. We are posting the community updates, including the President's and Superintendent's reports, on the landing page of our website. If you have questions about something presented, want a recap, or just want to keep on top of what's going on, we wanted to make that easier, as this is the primary way that we update the community. As always, the full meeting recording will be available on the Board of Ed tab as soon as it's available, but candidly, watching the community update is a way to get most of the updates accurately without committing to a full meeting. We had a wonderful meeting this morning with our sister school in Beijing. Prior to COVID, we were in the process of rekindling our relationship and cultural exchange. Today's delegation came into Art Greeley and learned about some of the innovative work and spaces we've developed since their last visit in 2015. We are hopeful that this relationship will only grow stronger and provide us opportunities for our students to study in Beijing and for their students to spend a week or two here with us living with our families. Kaylee and I had a meeting with the HR team in the Chappaqua Congress of Teachers upper leadership last week. I think it was a really good and productive meeting. I hope the CCT leadership feels similarly. The CCT shared with us some of their concerns and suggestions, and we were able to clarify how we perceive the board role vis-a-vis the teachers and brainstorm how to have a more collaborative and engaged relationship moving forward. We look forward to continuing these meetings and dialogues and strengthening the relationship between the CCT and the board. I also want to note that there are people who think we have a teacher retention problem. I want to address this head on with the note that we cannot speak to any person's individual employment or situation. So I want to be clear that I'm speaking in very broad strokes, very intentionally. We do not have a problem. Overwhelmingly, our faculty is exceptional, and we are incredibly lucky to have them in our classrooms teaching our kids. While some individuals have left the district on their own volition, you are correct in assuming that there are some who have made decisions to leave after being evaluated by our multi-pronged evaluation process, knowing we have robust instructional expectations. Multiple people are involved in this decision, and the board is aware. Dr. Ackerman will be presenting a webinar in the next quarter on how we have changed our teacher retention and tenure processes this year based on feedback from the CCT, which will hopefully alleviate many concerns. It is essential that we have a superintendent who timely addresses issues to be sure that all of our students get the educational experience they deserve, and we are very lucky to have that. As most people hopefully know, Dr. Pease and his team presented a webinar last night addressing our curriculum in the Middle East, DEI work, and the district's response to the attacks on Israel and ongoing war, as well as the district's curriculum around anti-Semitism and how we pick and review our curriculum. That webinar has now been emailed to the entire community if you were unable to watch it live, along with a link to provide feedback to the board and administration. We welcome your feedback whether you watch the live webinar or the recording. If you haven't tuned in yet, I should let you know it's nearly 2.5 hours long. You had questions, we had answers. In fact, Dr. Pease and his team probably answered a lot of questions you didn't even know you had, and to your whole team, a million thank yous. That was quite the undertaking. I will ask that you please not comment on the webinar until you've had the chance to watch it. That's not fair to all the work that went into this, but the feedback link has been emailed to the whole community along with the slides and webinar, and we are going to read every piece of feedback that comes in through that feedback form, and that is the best way to provide us feedback on the webinar. You will also see on the agenda tonight that we have 3 speakers for Unity Day in December, which may end up happening over the course of 2 days to accommodate schedules. Our speaker lineup looks amazing, and I want to thank our team for putting this together. The 3 speakers, 2 of whom will speak to our secondary students, and 1 of whom will address our elementary students, will speak to eradicating hate and making sure that all of our students feel safe and a sense of belonging in our school communities, which is one of the pillars of our new strategic plan. You will also see on the agenda first readings of 2 new policies. These policies are being developed to provide additional oversight to clubs, which is necessary for a variety of reasons, and to the process for bringing outside groups or presenters to the school community. It will take a few readings to finalize these policies, but we'd rather get it right than rush and have the policies be ineffective. These policies will help us prevent a repeat of the incident this fall. To our community members who feel like we're not doing enough, I want to assure you that we are taking the rise of anti-Semitism extremely seriously. Dr. Ackerman and I have spoken at least daily, sometimes several times a day, since October 7th, on how to best support our community, and the administration has been working tirelessly to try to do so. In addition to the extensive work outlined in last night's webinar, members of the administration and the board are attending a UJA seminar in December on addressing anti-Semitism in schools. As I have mentioned, we are looking at policies in the wake of the anti-Semitic incidents on campus, and have revisited our curriculum to ensure that it is delivered in a way that gives a fair and accurate history of Israel and the Jewish people's history. This district categorically denounced the terrorist attack on Israel and has met with Jewish leaders to discuss how to best support our community when most public school districts were ignoring these issues entirely. We were asked to give an update on curriculum and almost immediately scheduled a webinar to do so. Nevertheless, we have been bombarded daily by emails saying that we're not being responsive to the Jewish community, that we don't care, that we're not doing enough or doing it right or doing it fast enough. I've said this in many, many contexts, and I will say it again. We are much more concerned with doing things right than doing them quickly. I know that that doesn't always feel good, but it usually serves us all well in the end. This work is important. We want to get it right. The insinuation that we don't care or aren't committed to supporting our Jewish families feels, first of all, ridiculous, and second of all, really, really hurtful. We are doing everything we can and will continue to do so, but I also need to remind people that we are a public school district. While we will continue to ensure that our DEI work is robust and effective, and that our curriculum is fair and accurate, and that all of our students feel supported, we cannot teach lessons in any way that appears or insinuates that we are taking a side or a viewpoint on political issues. It is simply not appropriate for a public school district. To our community members who feel like we're doing too much, we have tried through every spike in hatred that has targeted a segment of our community to support that community through the trial of feeling targeted and afraid. The recent rise in anti-Semitism globally and locally is alarming, and right now it is our Jewish families who need to know that we hear them and are supporting them, the same way that we have and will continue to support all of our communities in their times of need. I want to be clear that we do this through our DEI work, the same way we have supported other communities through periods of acute discrimination through our DEI work. It is not favoritism or prioritization. It is a recognition that right now our Jewish families feel targeted and afraid across America and the world. Even with that said, I want to also recognize that we have many families in our community of Palestinian descent who are also hurting and suffering and scared of discrimination, and that is also awful and unacceptable for them to feel that fear in our community. It is our job as a public school district to make sure that all of our students, Jewish and Muslim, Israeli and Palestinian, feel supported and a sense of belonging. That is the core of our charge, and we take it very seriously, as we do for our students of all faiths and all backgrounds. I also want to say that many of our families are hurting and grieving because of the war and because of other wars that don't get the same level of attention. This is separate and distinct from the issue of anti-Semitism. This war that Hamas started has taken many lives, and there are many members of our community who are in pain. People don't know if their friends and family members are safe, or worse, they affirmatively know that they are not. This pain and this grief of losing loved ones is no more or less profound, depending on what faith you practice or what side of a border you live on. Our community collectively is hurting, and please can we try to support each other here through our shared commitment to leaving our kids a better world than the one we have. Our commitment up here, which we take very seriously, is for all of our students to know they are supported, valued, and loved for who they are, and that they belong here. We all belong here, and maybe if we can do that work well and really instill that message, our kids will feel equipped to do the work of repairing this world. And with that, I wish everyone a good Thanksgiving. I hope you can spend it with family and friends. With everything wrong in this world, there is also a lot of good.
Thank you, Hillary. So I just want to begin the superintendent's report, just reviewing some of the steps that we've taken as a district to respond to much of what Hillary had shared in her president's report. So if you could just pull up the community update, I'd appreciate that. All right, so first let me just review. We had updated the community at our last meeting, some of our action steps based on feedback from our staff, feedback from our parents, and then in consultation with each other about how our community was feeling. And so we had provided district instructional and social emotional support to our staff before we reopened after the terrorist attacks. And we sent out a communication to our families. The district equity team met, and in addition to designing lessons for our high school, recommended we design lessons for our 7th and 8th grade, which I know Adam and his team shared last night. We had sent out a specific communication to our middle school and high school parents, sharing with them that we had conducted those lessons. And we also, our teaching staff had done specific hate speech lessons for our middle school and our high school students,
And those lessons were shared last night in the webinar as well. So if you haven't had a chance to view it yet, you can see how we structured those lessons for our students. And then, of course, we had our webinar last night that was emailed to our parents and staff today. And I would really encourage you to provide your feedback there so we have it all in one place. We're already reviewing it. I see some feedback in there about some concerns around some instructional resources that we have, some of the ways that we are presenting information, and that's all good feedback for us to have. We'll review it, we'll talk about it, and we'll decide whether or not we should make some adjustments based on what we're hearing, but we do want to give people enough time to respond. We just sent it out at 10:30 this morning. I now would like to go over 2 of the policies that the policy committee has drafted. And we had to create them because they don't exist in a lot of places, which is fine. But I would like to share them right now with the community in case anyone would like to make a public comment on them. So if you could please pull up the outside speaker policy right now, David, and I'm just going to go through an overview of what this looks like. So outside speakers are typically brought in by our staff. They are sponsored by student clubs, which I'll talk about in a minute, or they are sponsored through our partnership with one of our school affiliated organizations, and it's usually the PTA, but sometimes it's Greeley Sports Boosters, and Friends of Greeley Theater is also another organization that's closely tied to our work here. So we crafted a policy so we all had the same understanding of what this should look like moving forward. And so let me just talk a little bit about it. So what we did was we created a system so our principals could interact with our affiliated organizations to come up with a consistent way that we could vet our speakers and process that we would all undertake together. And so what we felt like we should consider structuring is like a window for affiliated organizations to bring speakers forward so we can talk through whether or not that makes sense from our vantage point to house one of those speakers on our property during the school day for our kids. And so we came up with some criteria of what we would like to be submitted for consideration. So basically who was sponsoring them, the speaker's name, their credentials, the purpose of the presentation, the intended audience, an outline of the content. And then we always, when we're bringing in speakers ourselves, we get references from other public schools and we usually call them. So we'd like to include that process. And we often try to find schools in New York because we have the same regulation and guidelines that we follow, but sometimes we take references from school districts outside the state. And then we put in a process. There'd be a process where the building principal would review it. They would respond to the organization whether or not the speaker was approved. And then there could be a process if the speaker wasn't approved where I could get involved. And then we went forward and talked about when a speaker was going to be presenting here, how we would go about inspecting the materials to make sure that they were appropriate. So there's a process that outlines that where basically 5 days before the presentation, the materials would be submitted to the principal and they would review them to make sure that they're appropriate and that the district would have the right to cancel the presentation if they weren't appropriate. So this is our first attempt at coming out with guidelines for us to operate within. And so we're definitely looking forward for feedback on our first proposal. So we can talk about that amongst the board when we cover this in the agenda. And then if our community wants to provide feedback and public comment, or if they'd like to email the Board of Education when the policy meets again, we will look at that with our attorneys. So that's the first policy that we have outlined tonight. And then the second one, if you could pull that up, is for our student clubs. And so we have student clubs that the district sponsors at the middle school and the high school. So we thought that it would be important for us to have the same standards for these clubs at all 3 of our buildings. And so in working with the principals, we came up with like a guidance document that we'd be working with our students and with our staff. So basically our clubs need to be advised by our staff And we have some clubs where the advisors are paid and some clubs where they're not. And we work on that with the CCT because some of these clubs happen within the school day. But we've decided that for our student clubs where they're unpaid advisors, that they would need to be established by November 1st in an academic year. And then we talked about what the advisor requirements were and what participation requirements were. And then we talked about how clubs could propose co-sponsoring events with outside organizations. So if our clubs wanted to co-sponsor something in the community, we have a process in place so the principal can review that and potentially approve it. But there's certain things that we want to know. We want to know who we're co-sponsoring with, where's the location, what's the time, who's speaking, what are their credentials, what's the purpose, who's the intended audience. These are presentations that aren't on our property. An outline of the content, the role of the club before the event and during the event, and if there's any cost for the club associated with that. And then we talk about what that needs to look like, and that it needs to be consistent with our school policies. And then we have clubs that like to bring speakers in, which is great. So we have a process in place for that, very similar to our school affiliated organizations, but there's a little bit of latitude for our school clubs around the deadline to ask for approval. And then we just to be very clear, because these things come up a lot when the high school particularly is working with our kids, we memorialize our language around when kids can hang things up in the building and what that needs to look like, because they have to be reviewed and stamped. We talked about meetings and them needing to be on property, and when they're off property, those are really field trips. So what the process is for that. We outlined our fundraising in one place because we have a fundraising policy, but we just felt this would be helpful for our advisors and our kids to have it all in one space. And then we talked about social media and our website expectations, and just establishing that it is our expectation that our clubs are not affiliated with just websites that are not school-based websites like the PTA or really theater or sports boosters. Like, we can't have outside organizations linked to our clubs without our permission. So it talks about that. And then it talks about how the building principal really has oversight for clubs, and that if clubs aren't aligned with our policy, that they may not exist anymore. So this is our first attempt at trying to address many concerns that were brought to our attention at the last meeting. I want to thank Kelly and Ryan for working with us and our principals to try to memorialize what we were hearing. But we know that there's multiple readings for a reason. So we will look forward to feedback, and we'll come back to the next meeting with any adjustments based on what that feedback looks like. Okay, so if we can go back to the superintendent's report, that would be great. And these are all online under the agenda this week if people want to go back and look at them. And so I do want to highlight, and I know that Hillary had mentioned it, that we did have a Beijing National Day School come and visit with us today. And we have sent students to China 3 times over the course of the past 10 years. And while they express deep gratitude for being here and learning from us, we've learned a lot from our experiences with them. I think a lot of our spaces are shaped off of what our administrative team and staff saw when they visited China over those past 3 experiences. So I just want to express my appreciation to Adam, the PD team, the Board of Education, and our students who were involved in hosting our guests today. We really had a great experience. So now I want to highlight Mario Martinez. As you know, that Joe, if you can move the slide, that'd be great. Joe Gramando has retired, and we're lucky Joe has decided to stay on to help support our capital project work. And so I'm pleased tonight to be recommending Mario Martinez to the Board of Education for your consideration as to be our new director of facilities operation and maintenance. Mario has been here for over 20 years. He's knows many of our parents, our administration, our staff. He has managed a lot of our different capital projects, particularly at Greeley. He has been the president of the CSCA, and he was the clear candidate through a process where we were able to interview different candidates for this position. He was unanimously supported by the committee. I want to thank Andrew and Josh for leading that process. And so I am going to be recommending Mario to you this evening in the agenda, and I'm really pleased to be able to do that on behalf of the district. And Mario's here, so I don't know where he is. So everything goes okay. Mario's going to be the new director starting in December, and we're going to work hard to figure out who's going to be replacing him at Greeley. But I'm really excited to be in a position to recommend Mario to you this evening. So it's great. So just as a follow-up to our last meeting, we had discussed and had a presentation from the town of Newcastle about supporting the CHAP line, which would be a pathway behind Greeley that would connect, I'm going to say for our purposes, Bell to the high school, even though it connects a whole bunch of things. And so the board had asked me to prepare a letter and a resolution supporting the grant process to hopefully move this project forward. So that resolution is on the agenda this evening. Just want to share a little bit with you about what we had covered during our superintendent conference day. So during election day, we're typically off because we have 4 of our buildings being used for voting. But we take advantage of that opportunity to do some real work at the secondary level. Our elementary teachers and our 5-6 teachers are conferring, so they're not a part of superintendent's conference day if they're a core teacher. But we really take advantage of this to do some of our district work. And this year we actually spent a significant amount of time talking about our strategic plan. And as the community knows, we have redefined our strategic work for the next 5 years and presented that to the community last June. And so I just wanted to share with the board briefly some of the things that we have begun conversations around and that you'll be hearing about in the near future is creating an alumni outreach opportunity for us through software programs to connect our alumni who don't live here back to the district. We're revising our profile of Greeley graduate. We worked with our teachers on our evaluation process, supporting our non-tenured staff, personalizing professional learning, continuing to develop our spaces, including our stock market well lab that we're working on with the CSF, and working on developing our data dashboard to communicate better with each other and with our community around student progress. We did a lot of work on K-4 foreign language and what our thinking is around how that could potentially impact our 5-7 foreign language program. At the middle schools, they talked a lot about advisory, expanding our mentor program, our SEL approach, and increasing our rigor in our 5th through 7th grades to align with some of our high school courses that we're offering in 8th grade. And then it really, conversations were around advisory. Right now we're piloting that in the life school, so we're going to expand that to the high school next year. What our SEL program should look like in the high school moving forward. We talked a lot about life school and whether or not we can expand that to the lower grades. Lifting the rigor in 9th and 10th grade. A lot of conversations centered on our science electives, which will be new for us next year because we've moved living environment down to 8th grade. It opens up opportunities for our 9th graders. And then we talked about our STEAM curriculum and how to scaffold that in a way that we're offering like a state-of-the-art experience for our students in our spaces. And then our intervention program at the middle school, how to continue to work on that to best support our kids. And of course, we have to continue to talk about foreign language if we're going to make some adjustments to the elementary program. This is the end of our first quarter, so I do want to share with you, as I have for the past 3 years, these are our hate speech, bias, and discrimination incidents from the first quarter. So you'll see that there was 1 at the elementary school, 9 reported incidents at the middle school, and 3 at the high school, and 3 community communications went out for the high school. So that is denoted here in this slide. And so now I'm going to transition over to Jamie, who's going to talk about National Inclusive Schools Week.
Good evening. As you know, every year we celebrate National Inclusive Schools Week, and it really is a partnership between the school district and the PTA. So what you'll see listed here are some of the festivities that are going to be provided by the school district and others that will be provided by our PTA. The theme for National Inclusive Schools Week is Draw Me In, but our PTA chairs put up some spins on the others, such as inclusive friendships and celebrating all abilities. So it's going to be a day filled with activity, or a week filled with activities about the power of inclusion. So many of you heard our inclusion song on opening day. You got a preview hot off the press that all of our elementary students have been learning and will be singing sometime during that week. And at the middle and high school, we're going to have a poster project, which I'm sure you will see them on the walls of all of our buildings that our art teachers are working on, with the theme of the power of inclusion. And then we have some speakers coming. We have a program from the National Alliance on Mental Illness that's called Ending the Silence that will be at our middle and high school. And that's a presentation that teaches about the warning signs of mental health conditions and the steps to take if you or a loved one are showing symptoms of a mental health condition. And it's really about not being alone and knowing that there is a community to support you. And then at our elementary level, we have someone who is going to be talking to the students about American Sign Language. The PTA is also offering American Sign Language during their ASE, so it'll be a nice little preview. And they will be kind of leading an art installation about what a friend means and friend in sign language. And then we have one of the Tourette's ambassadors coming. They've come before, but a young person comes and shares their experience with our students. So there are lots of activities, and then some of the schools will be running their own. So it should be really a week full of power of inclusion.
And then Andrew's going to talk about our Unity Day program.
Sure, thank you. A little bit later on the agenda, you'll see the contracts for our 3 Unity Day speakers for your approval. It was originally scheduled only on December 8th, but because of speaker availability, it's now going to have some programming on the 7th and the 8th. Coming to speak to our 7th through 12th grade students is Ken Nwadike Jr. You may recognize him from his Free Hugs project. He is the Free Hugs guy, if you've seen him. He founded that project after the Boston Marathon bombing. Part of his story is being an athlete, a runner in high school and in college, and he's part of the community. He's a race director, and he showed up at the next Boston Marathon to run and missed the qualifying by seconds, but came with a t-shirt that said Free Hugs, held the sign, and brought empathy to the community and solidarity with the runners, and everybody hugged him. And that launched him into this. He keyed into something. He started showing up at protests, where places of conflict and trauma and anger, where there's lines of people facing one another. And his move was to go in with softness and to hug people, and to seek out their humanity and seek out a recognition across lines of division and anger, to recognize everyone's humanity there. And that's the message that he's really bringing to our students. We called some references, highly recommended. And one thing we're doing is having him have 2 presentations, one at the middle school in person and one at the high school. We got feedback that the high school in person that was zoomed into the middle schools isn't as engaging as we really want for our middle school students. So in the morning, he'll be at 7 Bridges. Bell 7th and 8th graders will come on over there. And then in the afternoon, he's going to be at Greeley. Hugs are not part of his contract. He's speaking, but I'm not going to make any claims about any spontaneous hugging that may erupt. We're really happy to have him and deliver his message. Now our next speaker on here is Vashti Harrison. She's an author, illustrator, filmmaker. She's going to be speaking through our K through 6 students on December 8th in the afternoon. A couple of her books are in our Windows and Mirrors collections for our elementary school. So Hair Love, which was also turned into a short animated film. If you had seen that, won an Academy Award for that. She illustrated Sulway. Her latest book, she's the author and illustrator of, is Big. She's also done a Little Leader series. We're hoping for like a celebrity author experience for our students as she zooms into them, does some reading, does a drawing experience with them, and speaks about her work. It's really nicely paired with National Inclusive School Week's Draw Me In. I mean, her work is literally drawing people in to books, and by doing so, making them feel like they belong. So we're really, really excited about both of those speakers. Now, also on Friday, Steve Goldberg, Director of Education at the Holocaust and Human Rights Education Center, will be coming to our high school to speak about hate symbols and hate speech. He's a longtime social studies teacher in the county. And in fact, when I talk to any social studies teacher, they're like, "Oh, we know Steve. We know Steve. Everybody seems to know him. Department chair, connected with social studies organizations." And his work is really going to be focused on the history of hate symbols and speech. I think we take for granted, I think as adults sometimes, our knowledge of history and of language, and it isn't always present with our students. So this is going to be a really deep dive into the history of that. We think will be really helpful for our students who'll be coming to the high school to speak to 9th through 12th grade. So right now we are in the process of, or we've designed lessons, pre-lessons, and follow-up debrief lessons for our first 2 speakers. We brought them to our district equity team this afternoon. They gave us some nice feedback to make sure they're accessible and engaging and really followable by all the teachers who will be delivering them. And then high school principals, or all principals, will be reaching out and setting communication to their families a little closer to the date about schedules and more specifics.
Thank you, Andrew. And then before I wrap up our report, I just want to share with the board as an update. We are doing our second reading in our transportation policy, and we did make an adjustment to this based on feedback at the last meeting where we discussed this in October, where we added more flexibility for parents to provide another adult the opportunity to drive their child home with some kind of permission release form that would be presented on the day of the event. So we'll have to talk about that when we go over our policies a little later today. And then finally on the agenda tonight, and this is going to happen over the next 3 agendas, we're going to start to see our retirements, because there's a notification provision in all 4 of our contracts, where if teachers and our secretaries and custodians let us know by a certain day, there's a stipend attached to that, an honorarium. So we do have one of our retirees in the audience today. And so very sad about this. We don't have to act on that resolution, I'm just saying. But so I just want to acknowledge that we'll start to see retirements at this meeting, in December meeting, and then the January meeting. And then we will celebrate everybody in June like we always do. So Nancy, we were sorry to see you go, but we're going to be very happy for you to enjoy the next phase of your life. So, and that is the end of the superintendent's report. I just also want to note that on the 4th, I'm planning to do my DEI webinar. And so I encourage people to tune in, and they'll be able to ask me some questions about all the work that we've done around our district over the past few years around our DEI initiatives. And as Hillary had shared earlier, the next webinar I'll do in the next quarter will be around staffing and retention and support. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So we have a resolution. Okay, so I feel like I need to provide a little bit of clarification around this, and I may ask Josh to jump in here and give us a little bit of the background, please.
Sure. So we have a new course, Virtual Enterprise, this year, where students learn how to create a company, create a product, and then they compete with other schools about the work that they've done over the course of the year. They had created a presentation to me about their product, which is called the Everything Pen, which is a pen that has iPad stylus, multicolored pen, whiteboard markers, because they see students carrying around a big bag of pens and pencils over the course of the day. So this is a virtual thing that they mocked up, and they presented me with a contract for $134,000. I explained to them that I am unable to approve these types of contracts, that the Board of Education has to approve them. So I explained to them, we actually went back and forth over the contract to make sure the terms were correct, and I presented it to the Board of Education to sign off on, so that the students can virtually receive their funds for the pens, and our students at our schools can virtually receive the Everything Pen. And I do want to note that they were great salespeople, and they sold the Everything Pen, and then explained to me that that will not be permissible on AP, Regents, or 3 through 8 exams, so that we also had to purchase the basic pens.
So I just want to be clear, because I know the community rightfully monitors our fiscal spending, that we are not actually buying 15,000 pens for $134,000. So, but
as we need to do this for these students to complete this coursework, can I please have a motion for 1.2.1?
A second.
Any questions or discussion?
I would like to make a comment. How come the everything pen and the basic pen cost the same?
Their cost structure is such that they cost the same in hopes that schools need both pens, was their explanation.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, congratulations to the students. You should get full credit for the assignment. That brings us to committee reports. Okay, sure, go ahead.
So our communications advisory committee met. We took a look. People may remember we did a survey about the open house experience. So we looked at all the feedback that came from that and talked about, thanks to Andrew for facilitating a conversation where we looked at the data from that survey and talked about adjustments that we might consider for next year's open house series. And then we spent a little time looking at how we may or may not be able to consolidate some of our technology platforms. I think those were the two main topics, right? Yeah.
Okay. So that brings us to our public comment period. We welcome public comments, and in respect for each other's time, we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. Board members may be contacted via email or phone. After the public comment period has been completed, board members may have a discussion amongst themselves regarding the comments presented. Please remember that board policy prohibits the use of personally identifiable information, including names of students or staff. We know that tensions are high around a variety of issues. Please remember that as a public school, by offering public comment, we must be a viewpoint neutral forum. We cannot discriminate based on the content of the speech or the speaker. That said, we remind you that we are here in the service of children. There should be no cheering or applauding or booing any speaker. We expect this to be a respectful forum.
Hello, my name is Alex Traven. I'm a sophomore at Greeley.
Hi, my name is Sean Bromley. I'm a junior at Greeley.
As most of you as board members are well aware, in the fall earlier this year, a group was invited to the Community Expo at Greeley called Westpac. It's an anti-Israel hate group recognized by the ADL for their anti-Semitic actions. They also openly support U.S. designated terrorist organizations like the PFLP, who were actively involved in the October 7th massacre against Israeli civilians and continue to be involved in the fighting. They have expressed support for Ahmad Sadat, who was the PFLP's Secretary General. They've also expressed support for Claudia Gerard, a suicide bomber handler. Among that, at the Community Expo, their representative made countless anti-Semitic remarks before finally leaving. In response to this, Dr. Seppi and the board agreed that this organization would not be allowed on our campus anymore, which is why I'm shocked that here today in the audience, we have members of that organization. In the wake of the October 7th attacks, and especially when the board wants to make sure that all students feel protected, it is ridiculous that a hate group could be allowed onto our campus and have the possibility to speak at this event. If they do so choose to speak tonight at this event, I would like to give everyone on the board a fair notice to their actions and to their statements, and to keep that in mind. If they make any statements, they are in fact an anti-Semitic hate group, and hate has no home at Greeley. Thank you.
I know it feels really good to support our students, but I'm going to ask, because I think we're going to have a tense situation here tonight, please no clapping or booing of any of the speakers.
And to add on to what Alex was just talking about, part of the action that Dr. Seppi did to address this situation was that she told me and the other students who met with her that people of this organization will not be allowed on district property. And so I'm just confused because I 100% stand by what she did and said. However, we have the second in command of Westpac over here today. I don't understand why they're allowed on our property if they're represented by if they represent anti-Semitic groups and anti-Zionist groups, and they openly support terrorists. I just don't understand it, because this should have been this action should have been taken, but clearly it hasn't. And I support all of what you guys have been doing. I greatly appreciate all the steps that you guys have been taking to support the Jewish community. However, clearly it's not enough, because we have a member trespassing on school property. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Chase Abroko. I'm a sophomore at Greeley, and I just want to address the situation of the Button Hook Forest. I believe that destroying sacred native land is not okay. Button Hook Forest is not only a land where Native Americans embrace their tradition by conducting ceremonies and anemonies and worship sacred stones and statues of animals. This is also a large possibility that human remains are on the premises. It's also very disrespectful to inhabit a land in which human remains were present. So if Button Hook gets destroyed, all of the culture, memories, and history goes with it. On top of that, a species of endangered bat named the hoary bat is a big part of the Button Hook Forest. It helps the environment by eating insects. Their population goes down. It's bad because more insects can cause more problems. And believe me, I don't think anyone here wants more insects crawl around all over your house. No one wants that. So I believe it's important to keep the population of the hoary bat alive, healthy, and in order to maintain a sustainable environment. Overall, destroying the Button Hook Forest will not only erase the culture and tradition of the Native American people, but will also pose a negative effect on the hoary bat population, which is endangered. Like, come on, people. We're supposed to be better than the generation before us, so we can't do the things the generation before us did. Come on, people. Who's with me? Yeah. Also, this is a face worth saving. This is a face worth saving. Come on. It's the hoary bat. It's cute.
Hi. Before we further proceed with, thank you. Before we further proceed with this board meeting, we want to acknowledge that we are standing on Indigenous land right now. Before the arrival of European settlers, Chappaqua was a village home to the Mohegan, Munsee, Lenape, and other Algonquin tribes. We stand today on Turtle Island on what is and always has been Algonquin land, and we must play an active role in recognizing Indigenous sovereignty as we educate our youth.
Before you can continue, can you please just identify yourself?
Oh, I'm Cassiopeia Sant, Greeley Senior. The reason we've come to this Board of Ed meeting tonight is to speak about Button Hook Forest and why it's important to us. Button Hook Forest is owned by the Chappaqua Central School District, and the CCSD's prevailing plan of action so far has been to demolish the forest, build 6 millionaire mansions on it, sell it to a developer, and cash out. So what exactly is Button Hook Forest? It's nothing less than sacred Indigenous land. Ancient rock structures built by the First Nations can be found everywhere. Stone turtles staring out from between the oak trees have been preserved as gates into this. Staring out from between the oak trees, stand watchfully above underground aquifers, which have been preserved as gates into the spirit world for thousands of years. Snake walls, which are the long granite walls in the woods that have often been misattributed to colonial farmers, stretch from the path down to the rivers and ponds as a tribute to water spirits. Deep in the forest is a cracked stone divot sloping up the valley side, and every summer equinox, a sunbeam shines perfectly straight across that divot, like a glowing golden spear. Chairwoman Towsey of the Brothertown Indian Nation has even said that the site may contain the remains of our ancestors and those of other tribes in the region. Clearly, Button Hook Forest is thriving with culture. I've been there, I've seen it for myself. You step into the woods and you are enveloped in an open-air sacred site dedicated to the sanctity of nature. But beyond all of that, it is rightfully Indigenous land, simple as. The Mohegan and Munsee Lenape were pushed off the land when the colonizers first came, and then they were pushed west, west, west until they were forced to settle in Wisconsin. And 200 years later, their descendants in the Brothertown Indian Nation have helped cast a bid for over $1 million to buy this land from the CCSD and protect it, undestroyed under Native stewardship. Up until now, this bid has been ignored. By denying the First Nations their sovereignty over their own sacred forest and by creating a plan to destroy this forest so that you can build mansions and max out on profits, you, the Chappaqua Central School District, you are playing right into a vicious cycle of colonization, of marginalizing Indigenous voices in the name of self-interest and profit. Please don't do this. Save Button Hook Forest.
I'm Naveen Arjun. I'm an 11th grader at Horace Greeley. I'm here today to talk about Button Hook Forest. This is a forest that is owned by our school district and is not just a collection of trees and wildlife. It is a watershed and provides a crucial service to our community by maintaining the delicate balance of our water's ecosystem. Destroying it would be a tragedy to the environment, but it would also be a threat to our water supply and the health of our town. Beyond this, Button Hook Forest holds deep cultural value to the Native Americans, serving as a sacred site for them who once lived in this area. It is our responsibility to preserve this land that we stole from them, and we should be recognizing the importance of their cultural heritage. Building on Button Hook would not only erase a crucial natural resource, it would also disregard the sacred ties that this land holds. There are alternative locations where we can build housing. I advise the board to consider the long-term consequences of trying to get permits to build and would encourage the decision to sell the property to the Save Button Hook organization. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Caroline Short, and I'm a junior at Horace Greeley High School. This will be my 10th year in the Chappaqua school system, and I have learned so much about the world we live in and the role we play in it over those 10 years. Recently, in my AP US History class, we learned about the atrocities, erosion, and erasure done to Indigenous people in the early days of European colonization. From this, I know we live, sleep, eat, breathe, work, and play on stolen land. In my global history class last year, we learned about British imperialism and the harm that is done worldwide that still exists today. From this, I know that our actions have consequences and we need to be careful, because some harm just cannot be undone. However, I've also learned over the years that change can happen. Starting from the 2nd grade, learning about civil rights pioneers like Rosa Parks, Susan B. Anthony, Martin Luther King Jr., and Barack Obama, until now, learning about the Grimke sisters and Harriet Beecher Stowe. As a Chappaqua School student, I know that what is happening right now with the Button Hook land is not right. I am so grateful to Chappaqua Schools for the amazing education I have received, and I'm a better person because of it. So I can't let that education go to waste. Taking even more from Indigenous people than our ancestors already have is completely morally wrong. The little time we have left to do what's right needs to be taken advantage of. I will not sit back and watch the schools that taught me that everyone deserves their human rights and that stealing from others is wrong and that our climate is dying and we have very little time to fix it, willingly hand over Indigenous land to land developers to build luxury housing. So I'm holding you accountable. We as students are holding you accountable. We see now the wrongs that have been done to Indigenous people in the past, and we see now that here's a chance to finally do some good. Please take it.
Hello, my name is Jenna Rosenberg, and I'm a junior here at Horace Greeley High School. Aside from being very passionate about the environment, I'm part of the Sustainability Research Center leadership team. I believe that saving Button Hook Forest from being cleared is extremely important. The many acres of forest are home to countless plants and animals, and the clearing of the forest would lead to habitat loss, as well as noise, air, and water pollution. Furthermore, the forest is part of a larger carbon sink. For anyone who doesn't know, a carbon sink is a reservoir that takes in more carbon than it lets out. This helps to offset our carbon emissions, and carbon sinks all over the world help to fight climate change. Additionally, a mission of the CCSD and the SRC is to educate the younger students on sustainability issues. I have personally helped to lead middle school field trips to the SRC and taught about sustainability. What kind of message are we sending if we are talking and teaching about sustainability, but then turning around and clearing a forest that's extremely important to native species such as plants and animals? I urge you to do everything in your power to save the forest. Thank you.
Good evening and thank you for your time tonight. My name is Ben Prober. I'm a senior at Greeley and the co-president of the Enough Club. Tonight, I'm speaking on behalf of myself as a student and Jew in our community. I want to start off by showing my appreciation to the school board and administration for their continued support and efforts to stop the growing hate and anti-Semitism in school. However, I also feel like I need to advocate for the administration to include a stronger emphasis in our curriculum on the history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the origins of anti-Semitism, as well as the implications in society today. As I will be graduating from the top public high schools in the nation, all my classmates and I should be able to confidently have an educated conversation about the conflict and use what we have learned in school to counter the ignorance and hate that we're seeing today. I feel as if it's my job as a student to learn about all sides of the complicated topic in a safe school environment, so I know how to go about these real-world conversations in my post-high school years. It is hard to feel welcome in my own school community when there seems to be an instance of anti-Semitic hate speech almost every month. I'm in strong support of the district dedicating more lessons to addressing the ever-prominent anti-Semitism in our school and teaching us the factual history of the conflict. I once again thank you for your support, and I hope that we can work together and make our school a safer place for everybody. Thanks for your time.
To ask you, please do not clap. I know we want to support our students, but it just does not create the right environment for public comment.
Hello, my name is Bob Herbst. I'm a civil rights lawyer. I'm here because I represent a woman raised in this community, graduated from this high school, whom Superintendent Ackerman, with the apparent endorsement of the board, decided to ban from all property of the school district on October 5th, 2023. When I was retained, I wrote to the superintendent explaining that the ban was unlawful, in violation of my client's constitutional rights, that it constituted viewpoint discrimination, among other things, in violation of the First Amendment to the Constitution, and our rights to due process, since the ban was imposed without any prior notice, process, or inquiry to her. And we pointed out that because the superintendent and the board failed to make any inquiry of her, they got their facts wrong, and it slandered her as an anti-Semite at the last public board meeting on October 11th, when in fact she's a Palestinian American with a Jewish grandmother and not one anti-Semitic bone in her body. We demanded the immediate and unconditional removal of the ban so that we didn't have to ask a federal judge to order the superintendent and the board to do so. I'm glad to say that on November 6th, after receiving and considering my letter and consulting counsel, the superintendent unconditionally removed the ban. But I'm sorry to say that while you publicized the ban at the October 11th meeting, you decided not to tell the public yourselves here tonight that you have reversed and unconditionally removed the ban. That could have been a teachable moment for your students and the parents in this community. You could have explained to your students that you got it wrong, and that the right thing to do when you get it wrong is to apologize to the person you damaged by your factual mistakes, your violation of her constitutional rights, and your defamation of her. You could have pointed out that the Constitution protects every citizen, whether Jewish, Arab, Muslim, or Palestinian, from governmental discrimination on the basis of political viewpoint. You might have done this the right way, you still could, and you should. You don't only owe it to my client. You owe it to your Palestinian, Arab, and Muslim students, to your students of color, to their parents, to assure them that speaking up for Palestinian rights and criticizing the state of Israel for what they perceive to be violations of international law and the laws of war, including collective punishment. I have 15 seconds left. Okay. That is acceptable political speech in the school district. Thank you very much.
The board,
I
if
hope
they'd
you
like
do
to extend your time, would anybody like to extend his time? No.
it. No, of course not.
Good evening. My name is Howard Horowitz. I'm chairman of the board of Westpac Foundation.
I ask that people please not applaud or boo, please.
I hope I get that time back.
If this continues, we're gonna have to recess the meeting. Please don't push us to that place.
I have no words really to describe the disgraceful treatment of our executive director by the superintendent and board over the course of the past month. Having been invited guest of PTA and then subject to the banning and defaming a woman who has dedicated her life and career to the cause of justice and peace for all people here and around the world. She should be hailed as a favorite daughter and alumnus, not banned and shamed. My words instead will speak to the defamation of Westpac as an organization. Nothing could be more harmful to any individual or organization than the libel of anti-Semitism. This charge is a libel used purposely to force an individual or organization to defend themselves on the false charge instead of allowing them to speak to the issue at hand. I will not waste your time or mine with any such defense. Instead, I will tell you about Westpac, what it does and how it is perceived in the Westchester community, and why perhaps our executive director and Westpac were invited to table here in your school and to speak with any student who wanted to listen and learn. Westpac has been a leading force for progressive social change in Westchester since 1974. We have been educating and organizing for a more just and peaceful world. Our members are currently involved with criminal justice reform, food justice, fair housing, climate justice and safe renewable energy, immigrant protection, an end to militarism and drone warfare, and the struggle for justice, peace, and equality for all inhabitants of Israel, Palestine. Westpac Foundation's purpose is to give a human face to those who would otherwise be unrecognized victims of war, injustice, and environmental degradation. Westpac Foundation connects the people of Westchester with a progressive agenda for the planet and its peoples. Westpac provides a meeting space for groups and individuals in the Westchester community to organize, educate, and work towards peace, justice, and a sustainable environment for all the planet and for all people. By deed and by word, this is our message to your students, to organize and work for peace, justice, and a sustainable environment. We refuse to allow the libel of anti-Semitism to be falsely weaponized against this struggle for peace with justice, nor against the most vulnerable among us here at home or abroad. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alana Traven. I have 2 children in the school district. My son Alex already spoke this evening. The men here from Westpac are defending a woman who told my son that he and his family were murderers and had the blood of Palestinian babies on their hands. And this was before the war started. We felt very comfortable and safe that they'd been banned from campus. I'm sickened that that's been reversed and you have not actually told the students and the public. Really gross and really wrong, Dr. Ackerman. And now that members of Westpac have spoken here, if there's anyone from the Westboro Baptist Church or anyone from the KKK who has something to say, clearly they'll be welcome here as well.
Please do not clap or we will have to recess this meeting.
Good evening. Dora Strauss. I have 2 kids in the district.
Thank you for last night's webinar on the curriculum with respect to the Middle East. We learned that you use Brown University's Choices program, and I wanted to raise this one point tonight. There are people right now actively trying to fight the wave of extreme, vitriolic anti-Semitism on college campuses. That group is also discussing secondary school curricula, and the Choices program has come up. The Choices Middle East curriculum appears to be funded and sponsored by Qatar, specifically the Qatar Foundation International. The Committee for Accuracy in Middle East Reporting and Analysis has reported that the Choices program promulgates biased, propagandistic, and anti-Israel material. Now, this kind of thing is precisely the reason why over 450 of us, many of whom are here tonight, signed a letter asking you to please have reputable people, person, or organization look at the sources that are given to students to make sure that they are unbiased, accurate with respect to history and fact, and devoid of misstatements designed to promote an anti-Israel agenda. We recognize that this is not something that is always immediately obvious to some. So I ask you to at least meet with parents to discuss this further in person. After all, the students who you are educating, our kids, are the next generation of college students. What we are seeing today on college campuses, the unbelievable level of ignorance, culminating in vicious displays of hatred for Jews and concomitantly Israel, stems from biased presentations and false narratives promoted in a plethora of sources over decades. We must raise educated kids who can engage in legitimate discourse informed by history and truth. Watching this generation of students informed by so much misinformation and hate is hard to stomach. We don't want this for our kids, and we know that you don't want it either. Thank you.
We cannot have applause or booing of speakers, or we will have to recess the meeting. I'm not kidding, and I don't want to do it, so please stop.
My name's Mark Garfinkel. I'm a resident of Chappaqua. I have 2 kids in the school system right now and another one on her way. So I wanted to echo some of these concerns. I think, first of all, thank you for the webinar. You guys have a really tough situation to deal with here, but I think the level of scrutiny that has to happen on the resources that you're going to be using to teach the kids about the problems in the Middle East really have to be scrutinized at a level, I think, that no one's even prepared for. And we have challenges now with new technology and AI, and it's only getting trickier to vet through the different resources out there. But today, it was called to my attention that the Choices program was backed by Qatar. And I just want to take a quick aside and say that I lived in Kuwait for a while. I worked for a Jewish man from Chicago who was had good relationships with the Emir. I've seen everyone come together, and I think in the end, the best thing for the world is that we all get along, but we have to be really careful because misinformation, disinformation can really skew things. And today I was watching somebody, Barry Weiss, who I really recommend everybody watch her speech to the Federalist group. She's liberal. She was talking to a very conservative organization, and she brought up a lot of good points about how challenging it is to reconcile all this disinformation, misinformation. But she said, when I was a kid, or when I was in college, there was a lot of people who had these viewpoints. And until I always said, everyone told me that they're going to get over it. Everyone's going to understand that, they need to think about the world more, let's say, accepting. And that then she was like, look, now we're many years later and the world's only gotten more divisive. So the Choices program, I ended up looking into it after I heard this speculation. I want to be clear that the Choices program is very clearly backed by Qatar. I actually called them up today and I said, who's funding you? And they said, we're a self-funding organization. And I want to put that to bed right now because as I pushed, I said, oh, well, it says that Qatar gave you guys money, $1 million in 2011. Oh, yeah, but we're self-funding and, they just buy curriculums from us. And that's like a politician saying, I get donors, but, and they might have ulterior motives, but we're self-funding as an organization. It doesn't hold muster. And then if you dig further, you'll find out, I said, who are the scholars behind this? And there wasn't great answers for that. And then I dug into who the scholars were, and you can watch those videos on, why the Palestinian-Israeli conflict exists. And they said, basically, I want everybody to watch it for themselves. I hate paraphrasing something, but it was along the lines of, the Israelis invaded Palestine, took away the jobs, and, what do you expect? Even though they were there thousands of years earlier. So please really look over the resources well. We can't spread misinformation, disinformation at such a pivotal time in these kids' lives. I'm dealing with my alma mater who has rampant anti-Semitism, and people saw it happening and they didn't put a stop to it. So please be aware and just look hard at who is feeding this info. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Warren Gottlieb, 8 Plymouth Road in Chappaqua. One recent Greeley graduate and one current Greeley student. I do want to say it is surprising me that the one objection that I'm hearing from the dais tonight, in light of all that we're hearing, is to clapping. I understand where you're coming from with that, but I just am somewhat surprised that that is the only objection that we're hearing from you. In any case, I was one of the 450 CCSD parents that signed the October 30th letter to the Board of Education and Drs. Ackerman and Peace. Though I recognize the seminar that was held last evening on how we respond to world events that impact our school community was in response to the October 30th letter. I believe that the seminar did not directly address the concerns that the letter was driving at. Those concerns were with the CCSD's curriculum with respect to anti-Semitism and anti-Israel hate, all coming on the heels of the events in our district last May and on October 4th, and regrettably, October 7th, the worst slaughter of Jewish people since the Holocaust. In retrospect, I hope everybody realizes just how serious what went on in May and this fall was, and my heart breaks from our community to see what is unfolded here tonight. This was a train wreck that was coming long ago, and I really wish it had been stopped. When I addressed you last time, I was fairly upset. I can see my time's flying, and with good reason. Today, I just want to give you some points as to the way forward so that you can get back to doing what is your core mission, which is essentially teaching basic skills, fostering creative and critical thinking, and providing a foundation for lifelong learning. Here are the steps I think you need to take. 1, to the extent you haven't done so already, the district should adopt the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism. I would urge you to do this without further delay. It'll take care of a lot of problems that you're having. Our town has that definition, and with good reason. Number 2, form a truly independent committee of current and former CCSD parents from the Jewish community that has members that are not simply seen as rubber stamps. The more credibility those committee members have, the better, more success they're going to have. 3rd, task that committee. Get a vendor in here to help you with this problem. It's too much to ask of you to solve this in-house. It really is. And in looking back at some of my comments to you, I think it's somewhat unfair to ask this of you. You have a tremendous amount on your plate. Take yourself out of the middle of this. And
I can ask the board if they want to extend your time. Give me 1 second. Can I have a motion to extend the speaker's time? Second. All in favor? You have an additional minute.
Thank you. Take yourself out of the middle of this, okay? I understand the issue with choices, and I was surprised to see that myself. You shouldn't have that problem. Take it off the table. 4th, task that committee with taking a very hard look to see whether or not our DEI initiative is in any way contributing to anti-Semitism. I know nobody wants to look at that, but you have to. There's been a lot written about it, and if you haven't read those materials, you should. Please take a hard look at that. Enable the vendor to conduct this inquiry and make their recommendations publicly without any interference. Implement their recommendations, and separately, I think you need to look at whether or not you're following your own policies and the Civil Rights Act of 1964 in connection with your DEI policies. I will say largely, my heart breaks for what has unfolded here tonight. I have nothing else to say.
Hi, my name is Catherine Wexell, and I'm a parent with one who recently graduated and two still in the school. I'm also here on behalf of my husband, who cannot be here because he's working overnight at the hospital, and I'd like to give you his letter. It is a Freedom of Information letter requesting more information on the recent and over the last 2 years hate crimes. We would like to know more details about how they're being addressed and prevented, and not names, but more details. So if I may.
Can you give it to the board clerk, please?
Thank you.
Thank
That
you.
wasn't my time, though. That was his time. I'm kidding. It's a joke. Sorry. So across universities, first of all, I appreciate the effort of your webinar last night. I was also signing on that letter that was provided on October 30th. Across universities, we are seeing kids being used to support arguments they often don't fully understand. Their desire for social justice is being warped, and their naivete and lack of education exploited. It is the school's job to prepare and inoculate them from this. I believe there are 3 ingredients that you are responsible to provide to prevent this from continuing. One is critical thinking. From what I saw last night, you listed digital literacy as being taught at the 12th grade level. I would like to know how this is taught in great detail. I believe this is crucial and needs to happen sooner. Are there assessments for this foundational skill? I just want to teach our children to check all the sources, and I am also curious about your sources for your curriculum, as some of other people have mentioned. I feel it's my right to have complete transparency in this area. A strong, too, would be a strong facts-based history of the region. This must include how many times a two-state proposal has been offered and how many times it has been declined. Students need to understand the Hamas Charter and stated goals of the Muslim Brotherhood. I was encouraged by your safety compass and how you teach that these opinions do not necessarily affect those of Jews or Muslims. It gives me hope that you will be able to teach difficult topics that need to be taught and not shy away from them because there is potential for things to be misconstrued or because they're uncomfortable. Which brings me to number 3, which is, as part of your commitment to DEI, you need to teach the unique ways in which anti-Semitism is fostered. This includes the 3 Ds of demonization, delegitimization, and the double standard. Disinformation is the way that anti-Semitism is spread. Jews are a minority, but often do not get the same attention that other groups have in DEI programs. You need to make sure that Jews are not being marginalized by adding specific training around the unique approaches to anti-Semitism. Hate is hate, but they are not all spread the same way. This does not conflict with teaching about the specifics of Islamophobia. It is just different. Both are necessary. This includes calling out language that is now speech.
Can I have a motion to extend the speaker's time?
Thank you.
What, all in favor? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. It's different. Both are necessary. This includes calling out key language that is now hate speech. From the river to the sea is unequivocally hate speech since its use in the 1987 Hamas Charter. Even our Congress, as divided as it is able to censure one of its own for using this exact language. I would like to see certain key terms defined as hate speech, and I want to and deserve to know that the Chappaqua School District is meeting these responsibilities. We live in a time of increasingly sophisticated disinformation. I think some of your curriculum might be subject to that, but I do think someone who is objective should be making that decision. I would like to participate and understand your curriculum.
Good evening. I'm Sherry Hammets. I have a junior at Greeley, a 5th grader at Seven Bridges, and a freshman in college. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but I listened to the webinar last night, and I wanted to elucidate a point about the Brown Choices program. I took a look at that program today, and I was curious about what it said about Israel. It has a menu, a catalog of videos. There was no topic about Israel. There was no topic about Palestine. There was a topic about the Middle East. There was a video a prior speaker mentioned, but there wasn't a lot. I did pull up the category for terrorism, and the first video linked was a teaching on colonialism, which surprised me because you'd think that there might be another video out there about religious extremism. So I took a step back and thought about how would a student use this tool that we provide as a resource on our website if they wanted to find out more information about Israel. So I simply typed Israel into the search box on the Brown Choices website. And what I came up with was a veritable laundry list of short, digestible propaganda videos that are incredibly anti-Semitic and anti-Israel, containing all of the language you would expect, or you might expect if you were looking for propaganda videos, but not the kind of language you'd expect if you were looking for educational videos. I encourage you to type that into the search box and see for yourself what's said. There's a video rejecting a two-state solution as essentially unworkable. There's another video expressing why a one-state solution, in other words, the river to the sea solution, is the only viable solution. So I ask you to not only see for yourself what these videos contain, but to withdraw support from that program of our curriculum, and to do it noisily, to do it with our students, and more importantly with our educators so they know why we don't support it. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sandra Stein, and my husband and I have 3 children in the school district. We have a senior here, a 10th grader, and then we have a 7th grader on her way. I don't have anything prepared. I'm going off of impulse, and I'm speaking, I guess, as a mother and as an adult and as a parent. I think that the parents of this community, as well as the school board, has clearly done a phenomenal job in terms of the raising of our children together. And the reason I say that is because we had so many young people speaking today to all of us. They were articulate, they were eloquent, they were measured, and they were honest about what they thought. That being said, we're still the adults in the room. And as an adult in the room, I am bothered by the fact that we can have adults come here and to the same, at the end of the day, responsible, but they're still children, and they're called murderers to their face in their home, right? This is not the home of the people of the United States of America. This is the home of our students here, where our children have to be on Community Expo Day, right? They don't have a choice. This is their home. So on their territory, where they can be accused of horrible things like murder, we as adults are sitting in a room where other adults will use terms like libel and slander and essentially say that they are victims while sitting 2 rows right behind our children. And that bothers me. That counsel for plaintiff purports to have some amazing ability to tell us whether someone has any anti-Semitism in their bone. I want that machine. I want the machine in every building, and then we'll all be fine. That should not be stated in the presence of our children. I respect that the adults here said what they said. They have apparently that right to do so, but this is the home of our children. And our children who were exposed to that have to sit here and listen to other adults say that they were victimized. Victimized, why? Why were they victimized? They came here to the children's home. And I want all of our children to feel safe. The students who spoke about Button Hook, they were amazing. They should feel safe. All of our children should feel safe here. They shouldn't have to know that our parents, we as parents, got another message again today from Greeley about another thing that was said and that our children were exposed to. So this is very real, and it's time for the adults to really act like adults and protect our children. Thank you.
Please stop. I'm sorry. I know it feels good to support our community, but it really does not make for productive meetings.
Good. I'm short, so I'm gonna. First of all, I don't know you two, but great job. I'm very happy for how you stuck up for yourselves. My name is Monica McClure. I am a resident of the school district. I have 2 kids at Roaring Brook, And my family moved here about 5 years ago for the great schools and because there was a robust Jewish community that would allow my interfaith family to live feeling safe. And right now, I am not feeling safe. And I would love your help in increasing that feeling of safety in a very challenging environment. And I know what I'm asking is not an easy task. I agree with the former commenters. I did watch the webinar and I thank you for putting it on. I think the education that we provide to our students about Israel has to go beyond Israel and before Israel. I think, not speaking specifically to Chappaqua students, I think a lot of students out there think that before 1948 there was a country called Palestine and there were no Jewish people there. I'm 100% Iraqi. My father's family was there for 3,000 years. My mother's family was there. She's actually right there. She's that beautiful woman right there. Was there for 2,800 years. We have a very deep, rich history in that region. And I think that the complexities of that and that ethnic cleansing should be part of the education. My heart aches for the Palestinian children who are suffering. My heart aches for the hostages in Israel. I think someone earlier said that we can't take sides. I disagree. I think it's Hamas versus humanity, and it's very easy to take sides. Thank you.
Okay,
I am going to let Dr.
yeah,
Acknowledge.
listen, this is really challenging to navigate, and I have been listening to our Jewish families. I'm listening to families with relatives in Palestine, and I'm listening to our faculty who are struggling, our administrators. I'm listening to our legal counsel. I'm trying to do the best that I can. I really am. I'm making really complex decisions, and they may seem easy to make on face value, but they aren't. They simply are not. There's open meeting laws, there's federal laws. I'm trying to address what happened through board policy. We're working really hard to try to make sure that some of what we've experienced in the last month doesn't happen again. And I'm trying to do it the right way, and I know it doesn't feel right for people in this audience, and I understand that. I completely do. I know we have parents and students. I know you're frustrated, you're upset, you're angry, scared, and those are families that are Jewish, families who aren't Jewish, and you have my deepest sympathy, and I'm so sorry you're feeling that way, and I'm really sorry that we have students feeling unsafe in school, and I understand that. And you have our commitment. We're going to keep working hard together with you to change that, but it's a process for us, and it's complicated. And I know that some of you don't feel it today, but your children are supported and will be supported by us. And for our kids who spoke this evening, I'll talk with Dr. Seppi and I'll make time to come down and speak with you about how you're feeling, because I don't want you to feel that way, but I hear it and I understand it tonight. We're just going to keep doing the best that we can here, because our kids deserve it, and I know that it's not good enough right now, but we're going to keep working hard at it.
Does anybody else want to say anything?
I'm just going to say this, and I'm going to be very, very clear. I ran for the board for one reason and one reason only, and it was to ensure the safety of the students. And Alex, I feel very sorry that you do not feel safe, that you have to sit one seat in front of him. I think that's horrible. And what I will say is, great, you might have got one over tonight. You might have infiltrated our meeting. But I will, and everybody on this dais has my word, I will resign from this board effective immediately if Westpac is ever allowed at a campus sanctioned event again. That is my word, and I will not allow it. So if that is something that has to happen for legality's sake, then the board can move on without me. And you are sitting there with your grin on your face, Great. You got one over. Never again. Not on my watch.
I want to thank our students, first of all, for coming. It's an incredibly brave thing to do. And I feel so sorry that you're in a position where you're having to stand up for yourselves like this. A lot of times, the laws that ultimately are meant to protect us leave us in a position where we have to listen to things we really don't want to hear. And I'm very sorry that that involved you having to be here and listen to that as well. I also want to answer the question that community members asked as to why we don't want clapping or booing or any responses like that in the audience. Because I think it's a reasonable question, and I want to explain our thinking. I know everybody here thinks that we're all reasonable people, and I'd like to believe it would remain that way. But there have been many meetings similar to this across the country in recent years that have turned violent. And it is very easy for tensions to escalate and for emotions to escalate. And I know that nobody wants that and nobody thinks that that's going to happen. But the last thing that we want to model for our children is a violent environment. And so that is why we ask that of you. And I understand that you may disagree with that, and I respect that completely, but that is why, and that is what we ask of you. Okay, does anyone? I think that we've had a request for a 5-minute adjournment. Can I have a motion to adjourn for 5 minutes? I'll second. All in favor? Okay, we're taking a 5-minute adjournment. We'll be back probably 9:17. Can I have a motion, please, to reopen the public meeting? All in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion, please, for items 3.1, 3.2? Let's just take 3.1 and 3.2 together, which is the minutes of the October 24th and November 1st meetings, respectively.
I'll move those two. All right.
I'll second. Does anybody have any questions or concerns?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion for 3.3, which is policy 5026, which is the second reading of the transportation for district-sponsored, sorry, I don't know, I'm getting some feedback. The transportation for district-sponsored activities or athletic events. I move. I'll second. Does anybody have any questions or concerns about this?
I just appreciate the changes and some more flexibility in that for people.
You know, I think the additional flexibility for parents is a good revision to this.
Yeah.
If anyone has any comments, we'll take it back to the next policy committee. If not, this will be on for adoption consideration at the next meeting.
Okay. So that brings us to policy 5105, which is item 3.4. So I'll move 3.4 for a first reading of 5105. Can I have a second? Okay.
So maybe in the essence of time, since I've already gone over this, if any of the board has any comments that they want us to review, they can send those to Hillary and Ryan. And then if any of the community members have any feedback, please do the same. Just send it to the full board.
Send it to Kaylee and Ryan.
Yeah. To Kelly and Ryan.
And that brings us to 3.5, which is also a first reading of 4060. And this is addressing outside speakers sponsored by school affiliations, school affiliated organizations. And this is the first reading, and we discussed our methodology and reasoning behind that as well.
Same thing applies here. Send comments to Kaylee and myself.
I actually move that? I'll move 3.5. I will second. Okay, so that will, again, please send any comments to the policy committee, to Kaylee and Ryan, and we will look at, the policy committee will look at those in advance of a second reading.
I recommend 4.1 instructional as presented.
I move that we accept the superintendent's recommendation for 4.1.
I second. Any questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
I recommend 4.2 non-instructional as presented.
I recommend that we accept the superintendent's recommendations for 4.2. I will second. Any questions or thoughts? I would like to say congratulations to Mario Martinez. We are thrilled to have you step into the role of Director of Facilities, and we are really, really excited to continue all of this work in the district with you at the helm. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Congratulations, Mario.
That brings us to our consent agendas. Sorry, my papers are everywhere. The use of a consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make more effective use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters which are included. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of business on the consent agenda may so indicate, and that item will be considered and voted on separately, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issue. So tonight's consent agenda is items 5.1 through 5.13. I will move the, before I do that, does anybody have anything they want to remove from the consent agenda? No? Okay. Then I will move the consent agenda, items 5.1 through 5.13. Have a second?
Second.
Are there any questions or concerns or discussion on anything on here? I just want to note that we presented the proposed letter that we're approving tonight on the chap line at the last meeting and asked for feedback from the community. And as far as I know, we got no feedback from the community. I just wanted to note that we did present that and offer the opportunity for feedback. All in favor of the consent agenda? That brings us to 6. Can I please have a motion to take items 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, and 6, no, those 3 together as our speakers for Unity Day? I'll second. Any questions, thoughts, concerns? All in favor, please say aye. Okay, then we have another one later. Okay. Then let's take item 6.4, which is an agreement with David Greiner for independent evaluator services for 23-24 school year. Can I have a motion for 6.4? Questions or concerns? All in favor? 6.5 is another Unity Day contract. I thought they were all grouped together. I was wrong. I will move 6.5. Can I have a second? Any questions or concerns? Thoughts? All in favor? And then 6.6 and 6.7 are agreements with the Sawmill Club for pool and tennis court use for while our students need to use those facilities. Can I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or thoughts? All in favor? There's nothing under 7. Under 8, can I have a motion, please, to take 8.1 through 8.5, which are acknowledging receipt of the Claims Auditor's Report for October 23, acknowledging receipt of the Treasurer's Report for October 23, acknowledging receipt of the Appropriation Status Report for October 23, acknowledging receipt of the Revenue Status Report for October 23, and acknowledging receipt of the revised revenue status report for September 23. Can I have a motion, please, for 8.1 through 8.5? I will second. Any questions or concerns? All in favor? Okay, that brings us to notice of future meetings. Our next meeting is Wednesday, December 13th at 7 p.m. It will be back here in the Horace Greeley Auditorium, and we will be seeing a presentation from the Seven Bridges Middle School. And then our next meeting after that is Wednesday, January 10th, also at 7 p.m., which is our budget preview, which will also be here. Can I please have a motion to adjourn at 9:26 p.m.? I will move. I will second. All in favor? We are adjourned.